A reporter for NPR was invited to participate in a study on anxiety and friendship. In this study, volunteers were exposed to mild electrical shocks while watching a video screen. Now, of course, the reporter who participated in the study disagreed vehemently with the term mild. At any rate, when the screen displayed a red X, Exactly. Yes, anxiety. Mine just went up. It spiked for sure. Anyway, when the screen displayed a red X in the corner, the volunteers' chances of getting a shock, this mild electrical shock, were 1 in 5. If there was an O displayed in the corner, no shock was forthcoming. After the volunteer/reporter experienced the first shock, she exhibited signs of anxiety every time a red X appeared on the screen. And she would tense up, just waiting for the onset of pain. Her anxiety levels rose whether she was watching the screen without being touched by another person or while holding the hand of an unfamiliar lab technician. But when the test subject's hand was held by a close friend who was present during the testing, her anxiety level was much lower. It seems that the friend's presence gave support and strength in such a way that the body's stress response was literally lower. In this week's gospel text, all the disciples were stressed to the limit following Jesus' death. They were frightened, and understandably so. I'm sure that if you had tested their anxiety level, they would have been off the charts. They were so scared that they were hiding behind locked doors. And who can blame them? They just witnessed the one they confessed to be the Messiah betrayed by one of his own, tried and convicted by both religious and civil authorities, and then brutally executed. Little wonder they were afraid, I'm sure that the next step that they, as Jesus' followers, would be rounded up and tortured too. But then something happened. They experienced Jesus' presence and they felt shalom. They were at peace. Their anxiety was lessened. Now, for whatever reason, when they gathered that first day, the disciple Thomas was not with them. Later, after hearing about their experience with the risen Christ, Thomas doubted, Thomas questioned, Thomas outright refused to believe. He wasn't satisfied, you see, with their secondhand reports, and he wanted to see what they saw for himself. Unless I see the mark of the nails in his hand and put my finger in the mark of the nails and my hand in his side, he said, I will not believe. And again, who can blame him? He was, after all, one of those who saw his Lord and friend mistreated, beaten, and then crucified, and has probably spent the last few days pulling the broken pieces of his life back together again and trying to figure out what to do next. We're told that a week later his disciples were again in the house, and this time Thomas was with them. Although the doors were shut, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." Then he said to Thomas, "Put your finger here and see my hands. Reach out your hand and put it in my side." Scripture tells us that Thomas does eventually come to see. Now, we're not told if he actually reaches out and touched Jesus. That's left unsaid. But we are told that he eventually comes to believe. He sees Jesus for himself, and that makes a difference. And following his own encounter with the risen Christ, He not only agrees with the witness of his friends, but as David Lose points out, he makes the most profound confession of faith about Jesus contained in all of the New Testament. He calls Jesus my Lord and my God. And that's important. That bookends what John says in chapter 1, where he says that the eternal Word that becomes flesh is not only with God, but what? Is God. Thomas says, my Lord and my God. And that's a profound statement of faith. But all of that, and hear this, all of that comes after he has a chance to voice his own doubt. And I think that's important because sometimes faith is just like that, is it not? It needs the freedom to question. It needs the freedom to wonder. It needs the freedom to doubt in order to really spring forth and take root. True, vigorous, vibrant faith, I believe, comes when we have the freedom to wrestle with our beliefs and our questions and our doubts. But here's the thing. I think those things happen best when they happen in community. Yes, I believe you can find God, you can be spiritual without a community of faith, without a place where you experience the risen Christ in others. But it's harder, don't you think? Melissa Bain-Severe writes, we are in trouble when we think faith is just a spiritual thing, an otherworldly exercise. Thomas, who wasn't at all sure he could have faith after Jesus' death, was invited to touch the open wounds of crucifixion, to be drawn into the physicality of death and life. Many people experience this when they are ill, when they're living through some tremendous loss, or perhaps when they're about to make a huge life decision. And in those times, the very presence of a person who loves them can and often does make all the difference. That person can't take away the illness they're facing. That person can't bring back what was lost. That person can't even reduce the consequences of the decision they're having to make. But her presence makes it easier. His voice calms you. The touch of their hand gives one a sense of peace. Touching, being touched by someone we're close to, has the power to change us. It gives us strength. It gives us hope. And sometimes it gives us spiritual courage. It makes us able to face trouble, to stand up to evil, to live bravely. In other words, it gives us faith. And my hope, my prayer, is that this community of faith does that for each one of you. I know it does that for me. I have to be honest with you. Following what I consider the unspeakable decisions of our denomination's most recent General Conference, I have struggled. And my anxiety level is high. Higher perhaps than it's ever been in my professional life. It's a hard place to be when the church you've devoted the last 30 plus years of your life takes such an un-Christ-like turn. It makes me doubt everything I've believed about the institutional church. It makes me doubt what I'm doing. And it makes me question why. And folks, the future of the United Methodist Church is far from certain. You know, I always assumed I'd retire a United Methodist minister. Now that's in doubt. It's in jeopardy. And like Thomas, if I'm honest, I want more concrete proof of what the next few years hold. I find comfort. I find solace. I find encouragement in meeting with and talking to like-minded colleagues who share my hope and my vision of the future of our church. But if I'm honest, again, that only goes so far. Where I find the most hope for the future is here with you. If I can somehow manage to stay focused on what we're doing here at Journey of Faith, on who we are, on the grace-filled, all-inclusive community that we live out each and every day, each and every week, I do okay. But I can't always maintain that focus. But here in this place, in you, I experience the risen Christ. You give me hope, you give me strength, and you give me courage to keep on keeping on. This morning, as we prepare to receive the sacrament of Holy Communion, I invite each of you to reflect on your own life of faith, to reflect on this community, and on how and where you experience, where you encounter the risen Christ in your life. And know this, your experience may be different from someone else's. It may be totally different from the person sitting right next to you. But that's okay. That's okay. The beauty of this community is that whoever you are, and wherever you are on your journey of faith, you are welcome here. You are loved. You are valued. You are affirmed for who you are. And the good news is that in the risen Christ, God meets each one of us where we are. You, each of you, are much loved children of God. And as my friend Colin is wont to say, I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it. Thanks be to God. Amen.